Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and also I'd like to welcome myself back to this channel. It's been over a year since I've last posted a video, and it's been over a year since I had posted between that video and the video before. So in the past 2 years, I've almost posted nothing, and I want to talk about it, how that has made me feel, where I want my life to be going, and lessons that I wish I knew before starting the current place that I am in life right now, and what I hope to do to change that going forward. In November of 21, I transitioned from my first job out of college to my second, and I moved into my apartment that I bought in October of 21, and I started my job and I moved in here within 2 days of each other. There was a lot of growth that happened in that year. I released lessons from college, I bought this place, changed jobs, and I stepped into a role that required a lot more from me than my previous job. So there's a lot of responsibility thrown on me at 23, and not that I couldn't handle it or not that I didn't want it. Obviously, I made those decisions for myself. But what ended up happening was I was absorbed into this world that felt like it snowballed into where I am now. I'm still currently at the same job, same location where I'm living, and I struggled a great deal because this job required a lot more from me than anything else had before in my life, to the level that it did. I worked 12, 15-hour days constantly, 7 days a week, and I could not get myself to do anything other than work all the time. I was not working on myself nearly as much as I wanted to, or spending the time with my friends or family in the greatest way that I could. And I realized that it took a toll on my mental health in a way that nothing ever should and no job ever should. And there is 3 lessons that I've learned since then that I want to apply over these next few months and the next year and the rest. Lesson number 1 is it's just a job. That's something that I have been told my entire career. It's just a job. Don't be too stressed about it. Don't care far too much. Accept where you are. Give what you can, but not more than that. And then reevaluate constantly. I was not doing that. I was just giving, going, and repeating for years. The past 2 years, I feel like I have worked so many more hours than I actually had the mental and emotional bandwidth to give, both to my job and to just surrounding people in my life. And it has destroyed certain parts of my own view of myself and what I hoped life would be at this point. And there is a great need for us to really take a step back and reestablish boundaries with the world and ourselves, and to accept that what is going on is only a reflection of what's going on in the inside, and what's going on the outside can only mirror that. So if you feel like your job is supposed to fulfill you to this amazing level and it's supposed to provide all of these needs for you, it won't. And it's a sad reality to come to that conclusion as well, especially if you're somebody that went to school and worked many hours in hopes of getting to a point where your career is a reflection of the work that you've put in, and that you can grow with it. And there's also a great shame in accepting that the dreams that you had when you were younger are no longer the dreams you have anymore. And I had to come to a point where I realized I didn't know what my next dream was, and it was because I was too tired from work to think about it. And when you push past your bandwidth for far too long, you end up in the burnt out stage. And at times when you burn out, you have to burn right through it, and you have to realize and reevaluate, hey, maybe this isn't working. Now, that doesn't mean go and quit your job tomorrow, start a brand new career of whatever. It means take a step back and reevaluate and understand that though there are many people in your life who you depend on for emotional support and for mental health, at the end of the day, it is up to you to make those decisions, to stand up and say, hey, enough is enough. I need to become better for myself so that I can show up at work for my family, for your pets, for all of these things in the way that you authentically want to. So it is just a job. There is no amount of time or payback from the job that will ever make up for the hours and hours that you spend past your capacity to be able to spend it. And maybe your bandwidth to spend on work is higher. I still encourage you to work normal hours and to not work constantly, to take a step back and realize that if something's going wrong, if something didn't happen the way you wanted to, it's not your fault. There are other people in the company that are responsible for things to happen as well. And if you feel like you can't go on vacation or you can't live your life because you are constantly thinking about work or showing up to work or doing these projects or doing all these things, you need to stop and you need to say, this is not my sole responsibility. You do not own the company. You are probably not running the company at the highest level. You're most likely just one of the other people at the company working towards a goal, and you need other people to make those goals happen. So speak up for yourself, which can be hard, especially when you will associate guilt with not doing even more than you're supposed to. And at the end of the day, you have to decide for yourself what you can and can't handle and to evaluate it. Write out a list, write out what it is that you want from life. And if you feel too tired to think about the future or what you want or the things that make you happy, then you really have to stop and make time for that and pick up a hobby that you liked as a kid, or go for a walk, or do something to get you out of that mindset. And when you see yourself thinking about work far too much, take a step back and decide, hey, maybe this isn't what I want to do. This is a job that is important and valuable, but I need to decide where that breaking point is and where that stopping point is. And only you can decide that, and only you can keep those boundaries intact. Now, boundaries aren't to keep people out, it's to keep them in your life. So when you send up Lesson number 2 is spend time with yourself and actually enjoy it. We live in a world where self-help and therapy and learning about yourself is portrayed in a way that something's wrong with you and you need to fix it. You are a problem in some capacity, and until you learn how to resolve it, you will not be the person that you want to be, or fulfilled, or any of the other big words that people like to throw around nowadays. I want to make it clear that there is nothing wrong with you. There's just ways that you approach the world, the way that you understand the world, that may not be the way that you want them to. If you struggle with anything, there is help out there for you to learn how to not just cope with it, but to shift it and change it. And at the end of the day, our minds are something that we can never get away from. And for the most part, many of us live in a state where those patterns that we have developed are creating a dangerous state for us to be in the sense that we are blaming ourselves, or we are shaming ourselves, or we feel guilty all the time, or we're scared about life, or we're sad, or we are limiting ourselves constantly by putting ourselves in this position where we think the world does not want to be around me, does not care for me. And unfortunately, until we decide, hey, I want to learn about myself, I want to do the things that excite me, that make me feel better, we will not be able to move the needle of where we want this world to go. It has to come back to yourself and to say, hey, this is working, this isn't working. And that can only be done through writing on a piece of paper, or caring about what you do on a daily basis, and understanding that every single decision and every thought process is creating the person that you want to be. You are who you are today because of the decisions you made 5 years ago. So what decisions are you making today, right now, that are going to turn you into the person that you want to be 5 years from now? And only you can answer these questions, and there is no answer that is wrong. There's just ways for you to approach it that will make it easier or better, but we should not be constantly told there's something wrong with us. And most of the time, the person telling that to us is ourselves. you shouldn't feel this way, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And there's no real shoulds in this world. There's only things that can be done, could be done, and it's up to you if you want to do them. And at the end of the day, I realized that because of lesson 1, I got to a point where, hey, I am not able to do the things that I enjoy because I'm spending far too much time worrying about what other people think or don't think, or who is talking to me and who is not. Because at the end of the day, whether you live alone, whether you are surrounded by people and your children constantly, you are still most of the day and most of your life only able to have conversations with yourself as much as you do. There is no one that you're ever going to talk to as much as the thoughts that you're saying to yourself. And just as you wouldn't want to keep a friend around who is constantly belittling you or yelling at you or saying mean things, we also have to turn our own thought process into one of kindness and acceptance, and one that holds space for us to grow and to develop and to learn. I did not do a great job of that all the time, and I've recently decided that there's no one else that is going to come into my life and shift the needle into the direction that I want to, except for me. And I have to keep moving it forward. Otherwise, I'm just going to be stuck, and stopping and reevaluating is great, but you can't stay there. You actually at some point have to pick up the pen, you have to pick up the camera, you have to put on the shoes and go running. You have to put your life into motion. And that's all that we really can do in this world. So lesson number 2, learn about yourself, get good with yourself, spend time with yourself, and actually enjoy it. Lesson number 3 is change your perspective. Over this past year and past many years of my life, I have struggled with feeling like I was doing enough, that I was good enough, that there was somebody who was supposed to be there and wasn't, and people were leaving my life, and I felt like I wasn't enough. And it goes back to this idea that if we constantly think something is wrong with us, or that we did something wrong, then we're always going to say we're not enough in some way or another. How you feel about the world, how you struggle with emotions, all of that is very real, and it's all okay. There isn't actually anything wrong with you for thinking these thoughts, but it is better for us to be able to bear witness to these thoughts instead of being consumed by them day in and day out. And if we can change our perspective in those moments and just say, hey, I'm going to choose to depersonalize this right now. That person not answering my text or not calling me or whatever isn't because of something I did or something I'm not. It is simply the current circumstance that is happening. Now, there's very well maybe things that you did or didn't do that this person is actively withholding from you due to that. But if somebody does not want to show up for you and continue that relationship and say, hey, this hurt me, I can't deal with this, or I don't know how I can go past this, then to them, the relationship isn't as important to keep it going. If they're unable to say, hey, I don't like this, I want to talk about this, and you are struggling to understand and you guys can't come together and figure it out, then that relationship was not strong enough to stay in your life. Now, there might not be anything wrong with any of your decisions, but if somebody isn't choosing to show up for you, you have to let that go. And you have to change your perspective from I'm not enough to this ran its course and it gave me what it could, and I have to close that chapter. And that is so much easier said than done for the most part, because we have made it to be that way. We live in a society that's constantly saying that phrase. It's so much easier said than done. And I challenge us to change our perspective on that. Maybe it doesn't have to be super hard or super difficult. It could just be changing our perspective and looking at it from a different window of gratitude, of gratefulness, of acceptance, and say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I may never know. And that's okay too. And to just say, all right, this is what is currently happening. I'm going to choose to accept it, and I'm going to choose to move on and move forward and move with the belief that what's meant for me in my life is going to be there because I am choosing to show up authentically and as who I am. There is nothing wrong with you or that person or the world. It is our perspective on it that can shift and change. And if we can do that, then we can create ourselves into the person that we want to be. Now, saying that seems contradictory to what I've just been saying of there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing you need to change. And that's not the exact same thing. Though there's nothing wrong with you or your thoughts or what you're doing, if you want to step into a version of yourself that has more money, that has more friends, that is happier, there are things that you're going to have to shift your perspective on to get you there. And changing your perspective happens constantly throughout the day. When you're talking to a friend, when you get into your car, when you're walking, all of these are different versions of yourself that you're stepping into to deal with the context of the current situation. So you have to change your perspective on a daily basis, no matter what. So if we could do it intentionally and understand that what is happening right now is up to me and up to the way I see the situation, then that gives you the power back. And when you are empowered to understand, this is my life, this is my reality, these are my thoughts, you get to be the person that chooses what happens next, regardless of what other people are choosing. When people show up for you or when they don't, it isn't a reflection of who you are, because you are continuing to move through the world as authentically as you can. And if you were unable to show up authentically before and now you are, and people are choosing not to be there, all that is showing you is that you're on the right path, because the people who will gravitate towards you as you grow and become more of who you are, you will be surrounded by the people that actually enjoy that version of you. And it's okay to let people go. Being in my mid-20s, you just realize how transitionary things are, whether that be your job or friend groups or relationships. Your understanding of life and the world and all of that is constantly changing. And I've definitely have constantly thought, hey, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, it's not right. And shifting my perspective in those moments and saying, hey, this is my life. I get to choose what happens next. I get to show up or choose not to. Those are the moments that help me reassess and reorient my life into the direction that I want it to go. And this isn't something that happens once on a Sunday afternoon. It's something that happens constantly and every day. And every moment and every situation is offering you the opportunity to shift your perspective and to say, hey, is this the person that I want to be in this moment? And there's been plenty of times where I could in the moment ask that question and I could not follow through with the version of myself that I wanted to be in that moment. But being able to accept that, hey, you were able to think about it. You were able to deal with these situations better because you are deciding to look at it and to be reflective. That is the win. And so moving through the world and accepting, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what the truth is right now. All I know is that I'm trying to live it. And all you can do is try and try again. And shifting your perspective is going to be the thing that helps you reorient your life in the direction that you wanted to. It's not going to just happen once. It's going to happen over and over again. It can be as difficult or as easy as you want it to. It's all about your perspective on the idea. If you say, well, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be a writer, or I want to be an engineer, it's only going to be as difficult as you set your mind to it and also the work that you put in. If you want to be a writer and you never write, it's going to be a very long journey. So are you doing the things every day to shift your perspective into the version of yourself that you want to. And every time you make an action that aligns with the version of yourself that you want to be, you will get closer to that person that you want to be. So change your perspective every single time, as often as you can. And the more you do it, the more you will get used to this idea of not questioning yourself, but realigning. And that's all you can ever do. And that's already what you're doing. But being conscious of it, being able to be the participant in that narrative and the guide in that narrative, leading it into a certain story, into a certain path, is going to get you closer to the place that you want to be. And that's all you can really do. So lesson number 3, change your perspective and keep changing it. Those 3 lessons embody what I've been through these past few years. There have been many more lessons and ones that I hope to continue to carry out and share along the years to come. But I do hope that you can understand that whatever you're doing is just that, and it's not your entirety. You are not the culmination of your best and worst moments. You are much more than the job, the partner, the dog, the house, the money. You are a person that has views of the world and has thoughts to be shared and has perspectives to be acted on and to be changed. This world is yours, and wherever you've been or whatever place you've got to, it's okay. Accept it, and the next step, the next version of you coming to life is only going to be as difficult as you decide it to be. The people who are supposed to be on your journey will continue to be there. If you show up authentically and people decide to go, let them go with love. Let them go with the acceptance that their journey in your life has ended, but their lessons and their memories will still be yours to keep and to carry forward. And at the end of the day, the only person that has to live with the decisions to the extent that you do is you. You have to deal with the consequences, and every single day, as long as you are alive, you have the capacity, the obligation, and the will to make a better decision. I hope to see you soon, and I hope you enjoy life and that you accept that this is the only one that we understand we have, and if we live it right, it's the only one we need. Thank you. I'll see you soon.